Well, I'm excited. It's taken him about a month and a half to get to it because he's a busy man. But Curtis called me yesterday and said the gate is painted. So it's showtime. We're going to find out if that post holds this thing up. All right, so you sandblasted it and then primed it. Tell me about the primer.
So yeah, started with sandblasting, get all the oil and the grease and the mill scale and everything off.
Just like on those posts.
Right. And then black epoxy. I like the black epoxy and then the black finish.
Okay, and the finish is a what kind of paint?
It's a polyurethane.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a low gloss.
Good.
Polyurethane.
Yep.
And
fabricators like low gloss.
It doesn't show a lot of imperfections.
Yeah.
Which your gate doesn't have a lot of
Oh,
imperfections.
not a one.
This is a
beauty. Thank you for that. Put that on the bill. But in general, the paint is going to resist UV pretty good.
Yes, I like to say the epoxy is your corrosion protection. The top coat is your UV protection, sunblock.
Okay.
Basically.
All right. And when I drove up here, he said, oh, there's one spot I just saw that I didn't quite get the paint in there. Well, if there's only one, it's going to be so impressive because so much of this is like, 1/4-inch clearance and 3-inch wide. How do you get it in there?
Right. It's just a lot of angling it in and just getting it in the right spots and being able to just hit every surface. You got to hit all your edges. You have to hit your flats. And a lot of dealing with painting a gate like this is knowing that your edges need to be painted, not just the flat areas.
Okay.
So,
okay. Kind of like concrete. If you get the edges good, the field takes care of itself, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we're going to lift it up, be as gentle as we can. Then I got to do some welding in place. And then you said you could put the top coat in a spray can for me?
The top coat can go in a spray can, yes.
Okay. And then I'll go get another can of that epoxy primer that you turned me on to before for the big bare spots?
Right. They actually have cans now that you can put the activator in as well.
You turned me on to that, and I primed some of that with that, and it worked great. But like they said, after 2 days, you weren't getting any more paint out. Yeah.
Right.
So we're going to be as careful as we can. I'm going to get it on the trailer, and it's going to sit on the trailer for probably a week before I coordinate the actual installation. But it's sure nice to know that after you put the work into something like this that you put into it, that the paint is top-notch. And it's always top-notch here where Curtis does his work. So I'm just around the corner. I'm going to bounce this thing down the road after we scratch it up with the forklift, and we'll see what happens next. Well, I've been kind of laying this out and getting things staged because Roland Guthrie is going to be by here in about an hour or so. He's got a nice little welding outfit. He's a way better welder than I am, but I've got things pretty well staged, I think, and we're going to be able to, assuming it fits the opening, I think we're going to be able to level this in here. I'm liking the way it's looking. Here's what I've decided to do. I put a brace in here. That brace runs down to that footing, which is monolithic with everything else. I just wanted to change that lever arm, that moment, on the short direction of that wide flange. I'm thinking that's probably going to be about right. Got no problem in the other position. And I put in a little rest over here, which I will fine tune just to help with gravity when this thing hangs open for the 2 or 3 minutes before it slams shut again. Just right, got enough heat pushing through there to peel the paint. That means it's liable to hold. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that helped that column a lot. See, that's one of the differences between a welder and somebody like me. He starts out with a rod called 5P plus, never heard of it. I assume it's more or less like 6010 or 6011, doesn't mind some paint, and then he's going right over the top of it with 7018. That brace is going nowhere. You know, Roland, I would buy a ticket to see a weld like that. Really nice, really nice. I'm not worried about this post leaning over when I get a 1,000-pound gate on here, because a 1,000-pound, let's say 1,100-pound gate 15.5 feet long, 15 feet long, they tell me is the same as a 1,100-pound point load, 7.5 feet from the pin. And Roland, this thing's not even gonna know there's 1,000 pounds 7 feet from the pin, is it?
Never know it.
Never even know it. That's what we like. So Roland had some zip ties. We're just putting the female side of these things in place, more or less, and hoping we can get it over there up against the post with them still about where they need to be. Crossing fingers. Okay, 1 second. That's going to work. Cross sight, pretty good. He's going to weld that top hinge. We just lost some ground. The top tack failed, so we're going to get right back to where we were and weld her hard. Grit pass burned in nice and tight. We're going to be able to put a little load down onto this gate. The top's going to hold. He'll come back and just glue that on till ain't no chance of nothing bad happening. So we're trying to put another set of hinges right here, because that's heavy. In fact, it's heavy enough to bow this post about 3/8 of an inch. So I'm probably going to put a little concrete apron and a wheel with a spring, but in the meantime, that brace is keeping her plenty strong, but I think I see what we need to do. I think right here, this thing's binding. Going to break that tack, rotate that back around, nail her back down. So a lot of you pointed out that I should have used a mag drill when I was drilling the holes through this gate in the middle of my shop. And you were right, but I only wanted to borrow this from Jim Denny once. And Roland knows exactly how to use this. I had one and traded it away foolishly. Jim put about 2 criteria on me. Number 1, don't hurt it. Number 2, don't hurt it. And so I'm going to make sure that we've got a hold of it with the excavator, so if the electromagnet pushes itself off the post, the machine catches it instead of the dirt. Perfect.
That's it.
Nice. Yep, go ahead and kill the power and let her drop off there so they can see this. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, easy as pie. And then we'll throw that in.
That's a larger bit though, right?
That's the bigger bit. And then what have we got? We got
these two on
these
the
two right there. All right. Same thing, more of it. We got to make space for a conduit to come into the electrical magnet. We're going to drill it 1 1/16. Tried to do that standing on a ladder with an 1 1/16 plain old machinist bit. There's the slug that the annular cutter takes out. No burr, nice and clean. There's the center of the mark. Show us the end of that thing, Roland.
It's got 2 flats on it. You have set screws that lock down on those flats.
Okay.
And then your center moves in and out.
Spring loaded? Is that I guess it's spring loaded, or
this one is not spring.
Wheel.
Inside it is though.
But it's just like a hole saw for steel. Pretty much. Look at that. It's the 1st of May, and I've been working on this gate since Thanksgiving. Good long time. But I've got it in place. It fits. It's been an adventure. I've made new friends. Let me show you some of the things that I was worried about, how they've turned out, and 1 or 2 fixes that I have yet to do before I can check the box and say this thing's done. So one of the things that I spent the most time worrying about was this magnet enclosure and this enclosure to anchor the gate to the magnet. I was worried because there's only a certain amount of distance. How much do you leave for fit, and how close does it need to be for it to work? Turns out it worked great. I've got 1 or 2 little adjustments, but it's going to be exactly as I hoped. That's a relief. The only adjustment I've got to make over here, as far as I know, is I'm going to shim this out another 1/4 of an inch so I get another 1/4 of an inch of bearing between the gate and the magnet. This gate weighs 1,050 pounds just like this. It'll weigh 1,150 when the wood's on it. And I couldn't be happier with how strong it is right here, parallel to the long axis of the post and that fence line. Just like concrete. But it's not like concrete 90 degrees open. Do you remember when I was pouring these footings and designing the post? I was thinking that the posts were going to be turned 90 degrees, and then I realized that that was just a brain cramp and I had to turn them around, which means there's only about 9 inches from the edge of the non-shrink grout to the center line of those bolts. That's a very short lever. It gives a 1,000-pound gate a terrible advantage. So I put a brace in here. Let me show you. So this thing is wildly strong in this direction and only barely strong enough in this direction because there's only about a 9-inch lever arm from the edge of that grout to the back side of the bolt on the other side. Terrible mechanical advantage on this little wide flange beam. So I made this little strap arrangement, bolted it to the footing, and Roland welded this in, as you saw. It really helps, but it doesn't help quite enough because even though the post is rigid to here, it twists as it takes this 1,000-pound load. There's a twist, a torsion that happens from here up that lets the corner sag down, and worse, it puts the center line of these 3 hinges kind of in a bind, and it operates hard. So, Roland's coming back this afternoon to weld in that brace. And to weld in 4 of these things. So that in order for this post to twist, it has to twist this post, and it's restrained by that brace. I think it's going to solve it completely. With the gate in place, we're down to the last phases of this project, I think. Next, I'm going to install the boards that I cut on my old sawmill, and then we will start working to figure out closers and keypads and electric eyes and cameras and all the things that I am least qualified to play with. Fortunately, I have good friends who are eminently qualified to keep me out of trouble. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.